taking a video. You're just gonna be on your phone.
What?
Get some work done. Gonna be on your phone.
I don't work on my phone. I just pulled up my chart, but it's not gonna help me. Is it?
What's next month? November? I wonder if the camera is not as clear as it could be. Can I see?
What?
Your chart. Oh, whoopsies. What's your password?
Are you supposed to be rolling?
I am, but I'm looking at your chart first. Where did it go?
Here, give me a minute.
No, wait. Oh, there it is. I sent you a screenshot. You just took a screenshot of your...
You should address your streamers that aren't out there that are streaming this.
There's no one in the live right now. You got a Capricorn moon, Virgo rising, Capricorn moon, Libra sun. There. You don't know what that means, though, I guess. Let me say that. Okay.
I did, I think, at one point.
Okay, well, November 1st, we have a new moon happening in the sign of Scorpio at exactly 9 degrees and 35 minutes of Scorpio. And so the new moon is basically the start of a new lunar cycle. It happens when the sun and the moon form a conjunction to one another. Scorpio as a sign has to do with death, transformation, regeneration, shame, taboo, the irrevocable, all of those like dark sort of things. And the new moon is a time for usually setting intentions. So the question that I want people to ask themselves during the new moon is, what parts of yourself do you try to hide, and why do you try to hide them? And also think about what would happen if you were to bring the sort of more shameful aspects of the unconscious world up into your conscious awareness. What could be like the worst thing that would happen? Yeah. And I'll talk a bit more about Scorpio as well as its opposing sign Taurus later on when we talk about the full moon that's happening this month, and sort of the polarity between Scorpio and Taurus, because they're opposing signs on the wheel of the zodiac. So yeah, November 2nd now. The first few days of November are pretty active. November 2nd, we have Jupiter forming a sextile to Chiron. And so the thing that you need to remember with Jupiter is that the role of Jupiter is to expand whatever it touches in the sky or in any given birth chart, right? So it's basically amplifying whatever it touches. And Chiron in astrology is the wounded healer. And so the mythology surrounding Chiron is basically he was born a centaur, half man, half beast. And he was kind of seen almost as a mentor to the demigods. He was a teacher of sorts, essentially. basically, due to the circumstances of his birth, his mother essentially like abandoned him. But Apollo, who is the sun god, took him on as kind of like a mentor. So Chiron, through his like relationship to Apollo, kind of learned all these different skills. Like he learned archery, he learned artistic things, like he learned everything, right? And so he became a mentor to the demigods and the heroes in the Greek legends, like Hercules, Achilles, all these people, right? But basically, what ended up happening one day is there was essentially this like attack of these other centaurs that were trying to like attack Hercules. And Chiron had dipped these poison arrows, these arrows into this poison. And what ended up happening is Hercules accidentally shot him. And because Chiron was kind of like part immortal and part mortal, he couldn't actually like die from this wound, but he also couldn't really heal himself from this wound. And so like he basically gave up his life, and he actually took places with, I forget what his name was, but I'm rambling on here. But basically, Chiron was like kind of this outcast, but he was also a really good teacher, right? So Chiron in the natal chart kind of shows us areas in which we may feel outcast, we may feel like we're like sort of like we've been given the short end of the stick in life, right? But it's also the area in which we can teach others and help heal others, right? So this is kind of the two things that we have going on November 2nd. We've got Jupiter and Chiron. So Jupiter is kind of like expanding this quality, right? It's amplifying this sense of trauma, this sense of alienation, right? So that can be seen as a negative thing, right? But simultaneously, alongside that, we also have this expansion of inner knowledge, right? And it's going to kind of, you kind of want to use this energy almost to like create new opportunities, right? So maybe this offers you the opportunity to kind of look at things, look at past experiences in a new way, right? So coming to terms with and holding space for individual and collective wrongdoings, right? Yeah. And then sticking with the theme of expansion on the same day, November 2nd, we have Mercury entering the sign of Sagittarius. Mercury is the planet that governs over kind of the mind and the mental faculties, and it's entering the sign of Sagittarius, which is the sign that is associated with Jupiter, which I just talked about. So it's expansive, it's optimistic. There's a sense of like exploration with this new transit. But it's also might be something about kind of like maybe you feel the urge to delve deep into a certain topic of your interest, because Sagittarius is also the sign of the devoted scholar. It's associated with like having, having like an expert level knowledge in something, right? So really diving deep into like kind of honing in on one thing in particular that is really interesting to you. Yeah. And then on November 3rd, we have Mars entering the sign of Leo. So we've got Mercury entering Sagittarius, and we've got Mars entering Leo. And so these are both fire signs, right? And it's kind of like counterintuitive because, you know, the nights are getting shorter, or the nights are getting longer, and the days are getting shorter. But there's almost this like urge to like be more active, right? Like there's still this like energy, which is very different, because usually during this time of year, people kind of want to retreat inwards, right? So it might be a little bit more difficult to like do that. Like you might find that there's some loose ends that you need to take care of before you can kind of relax and sit back, right? Yeah. But Leo, again, Mars is the planet that kind of rules over action, assertion, aggression. In the Roman myths, he was the god of war and the god of like battle strategy, right? And Leo is all about kind of drama, being the star of the show. It's about being flamboyant, right? So we're gonna have like almost this like burst of energy happening early November, right? We're gonna be like more enthusiastic, more energetic, more self-motivated, right? And there's also going to be, with Leo, there's also like kind of this like sense of being more invested in distinguishing yourself from others, right? So it's like what sets you apart? What sets you apart from the crowd, right? Finding what makes you different, right? That's kind of like a very Leo thing. And you're going to see, I think, some more of that, right? So it's a little bit selfish in some regards. But November 11th, we've got Venus entering the sign of Capricorn. Venus in Capricorn, first of all, Venus is the planet of love, beauty, the arts, relationships, whether it be like whatever type of relationship it is, like relationships with your friends, relationships with your family, relationships with your romantic partners, whatever it is, right? Venus kind of rules over all of that. And Venus in Capricorn is a very serious sign, right? It's a Saturn ruled sign. And people with a natal Venus in Capricorn are very like devoted, and they're very serious when it comes to their relationships, right? So with Venus moving into Capricorn, you're going to see more of that. People taking things a bit more seriously. And there might also be like a more serious and sober tone that people take on when addressing their relationship issues, right? So it can create some tension, but it can also allow for like a deepening of connection between people, right? Yeah. November 15th, we have the full moon in Taurus at exactly 24 degrees and 1 minute of Taurus. And so I talked about, the new moon earlier on. We're having a new moon in Scorpio on the 1st, and then the full moon in Taurus on the 15th. And new moons are the start of a cycle, right? So it's like a new beginning, but a full moon is a culmination of something, right? It can also be like almost a crisis point to some extent, right? And it's a time when the energy is high, right? So the intentions that you've set during the new moon are kind of coming to fruition during the full moon, right? But with the new moon in Scorpio, right? We have the new moon in Scorpio, and then we have the full moon in Taurus, right? Scorpio deals with the underworld and the immaterial. And then Taurus is a sign that is often associated with the fully material, right? It's associated with money, with possessions, with nature in the natural world, right? So you have this polarity between the immaterial and the unconscious, and then the material, right? And Scorpio is kind of also more about inner security and psychological security. Hadley asked if that means that her baby's going to be born on the full moon. That would be interesting. Full moon babies are certainly interesting. People born on the full moon, very energetic. I don't know if that means that your baby's going to be born on the full moon, though, but That would be cool if it was. Yeah. What was I saying? Scorpio, immaterial, Taurus, material, right? So that polarity. And then Scorpio is about psychological security, and Taurus is more about like material security, right? So it's emphasizing that polarity, right? What do you need to feel secure? Resources, money, wise, like, connection to others, that sort of thing. And another thing too with this polarity between Scorpio and Taurus is that Scorpio, at least in traditional astrology, is a Mars-ruled sign, and Taurus is a Venus-ruled sign, right? And so Mars was the god of war, and he was like a very masculine figure. And then Venus was the goddess of love, and she was like a very feminine figure. So it's kind of emphasizing this masculine and feminine polarity, right? Maybe there's areas of your life where you need to take more initiative and be more active in order to feel a sense of stability, but maybe there's also areas in your life where you need to like pull back and like retreat and do some like inner work in order to feel secure, right? So it's kind of that polarity, inner security and outer security, right? And how those two are very much interrelated, Yeah. And then that same day as well, we have Saturn going direct in the sign of Pisces. So Saturn currently is retrograde, and I've talked about retrograde planets quite a bit. A retrograde is just when the planet, if you were to look up at the night sky and you were to watch the planets, you would see the planet going in one specific direction, right? And then if you were to keep watching it, all of a sudden it would kind of stop moving and it would start going backwards, right? And so that's what a retrograde is. It's when the planet appears to be moving backwards. It's really just like an optical illusion. But in astrology, it's said that retrogrades are kind of a time for reflection, for slowing down, right? So Saturn is, a planet that has to do with duty, with responsibility, with hard lessons, with karma, right? So we've been kind of reflecting on those themes over the past few months with Saturn retrograde, right? But now it's turning direct, right? So it was moving backwards, and then now it's going to stop again, and then it's going to start moving forwards again, right? So it's going in a direct motion, right? And it's going direct in the sign of Pisces, right? So perhaps too, if you've been feeling like a sense of restriction in a particular area of life that falls under that Pisces area of your chart, you might feel that some of that is alleviated with Saturn moving in a direct motion once again, right? Yeah. And then on November 19th, this is kind of a big one, like a pretty big deal. We have Pluto re-entering the sign of Aquarius. So Pluto now is currently in Capricorn. It had entered Aquarius earlier this year, like in January sometime. It had entered the sign of Aquarius for the first time. And then it had gone retrograde, and then it had gone back into the sign of Capricorn, and now it's going to be moving once again into the sign of Aquarius, right? So this is the last time, these next couple of few weeks, are going to be essentially the last time when Pluto is in the sign of Capricorn in our lifetimes, because Pluto moves very slowly. It takes Pluto roughly 248 years to circle through the entire zodiac. So it'll be like another 248 years until Pluto is in Capricorn again, right? Not quite that long, but almost. Most of us will be dead by then. So, It's a pretty big deal. Pluto is the planet it's the outermost planet in our solar system. It's technically classified as a dwarf planet now. It was considered a full planet during its initial discovery, and then they were like, oh no, it's not a planet, but now it's technically like a dwarf planet. So yeah, but it's the outermost planet, and Pluto is the planet that governs over death, transformation, regeneration, transmutation, all of that stuff. It also has to do with like themes surrounding like darker things and, you know, suffering, but it's about kind of the duality. It's kind of the planet I would say that I would associate most closely with with duality itself, because it's very like very much about suffering, about death, about a lot of stuff that people don't necessarily like to talk about. But then it's also about how you transform through suffering and how you come out on the other side of it, as like a more actualized being, right? Like a phoenix emerging from the ashes, right? That's the major Plutonian theme. But Pluto being in Capricorn has to do with structure, right? Capricorn is the sign that's associated with structure, with boundaries, right? With the policing of boundaries, the maintenance of boundaries, right? And then Aquarius is almost the opposite, right? Aquarius is about the breaking down of boundaries. So you have Pluto, the planet of death and transformation, going from the sign that's associated with maintaining boundaries to the sign that's associated with breaking down boundaries. So, you know, this I think is going to signal kind of a shift away from just the structure of society itself, from like a more authoritarian, a more materialistic society to a society that is focused on freedom, independence, and collective awakening, right? Because those are sort of the things that Aquarius represents, right? Interestingly, too, I will say in the modern tradition, Aquarius, as well as its ruling planet Uranus, is the sign that is most associated with like astrology. So I do think that we'll see like a growing interest in astrology in like the coming decades, and like more kind of spiritual awareness too, right? Yeah. And then November 21st, we've got the sun entering the sign of Sagittarius. So moving out of the sign of Scorpio into the sign of Sagittarius, right? So the sun in Scorpio is kind of a little bit more dark. It's a little bit more gloomy, more moody, you know? But Sag is like very different. It's very like expansive. It's very optimistic. It's very hopeful. We're going to have like a lot of like a renewed sense of faith, a renewed sense of adventure, and kind of a more exploratory tone to our behavior, right? And it's kind of about, with the sun in Sag, it's very much about finding... Hello.
I was sitting at the dining room table and I was like, Astrology is going live. I'm like, oh my god.
I'm actually, yeah, I know. I'm literally almost done too.
Oh no. Okay.
I'll give you like a recap. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to give you a recap of everything.
No problem. Whatever I can.
Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about basically November 21st. We've got the sun entering Sagittarius. So the sun isn't, right now it's in Scorpio, right? So Scorpio's a little bit, you know, darker and moodier and, yeah, just less, Scorpio's just, yeah, you know, it's Scorpio. But then with the sun in Sagittarius, it's more expansive, optimistic, and hopeful. There's also with Sagittarius, there's an urge to like adventure a lot and explore, right? And the sign of Sagittarius with the sun in Sag, it's really about finding what makes you feel like a king, because Sagittarius is the sign that's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter was the king of the heavens, right, in the Roman mythology. So, yeah. And then November 25th, so we've got the sun in Sag, and then we've got Mercury in Sag, and then Mercury on the 25th is going to go retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. So, yeah, people usually freak out about Mercury being retrograde. But Mercury, I've explained this before, Mercury goes retrograde pretty often. It's like retrograde, like, goes retrograde like once every 3 or 4 months usually. But again, Mercury is the planet of communication, of thinking, of kind of like the exchange of information. So it kind of governs over the mind, and it governs over how people communicate with one another, right? How they send information, right? So with Mercury retrograde, people generally tend to see more like miscommunications happening. And there's also a tendency too for like technology to break down. Usually people find that their phones stop working for some reason, or their computer isn't working and nothing's loading, the Wi-Fi goes down, that sort of thing. Something I've been noticing though too is like, I feel like the past couple of Mercury retrogrades we've seen maybe like more solar activity, like it's almost like solar flares have been, I feel like that's that could be connected in some way to like the Mercury retrograde cycle. Yeah, which is interesting too, because Mercury is actually the closest planet to the sun. So yeah, and the solar flares are also renowned for causing technology to break down as well. That happens a lot. That's been happening more frequently. Hopefully we see more auroras though in the sky, because they're beautiful.
Is there supposed to be more?
Probably. I think there's going to be more. I hope there's more. I think we're going to see more.
Predicted.
Yeah, it's predicted. I'm predicting it. I'm predicting it right now. I'm saying there's going to be more. I'm saying 2025, there's going to be some crazy ones, I think. Yeah. And then on November 30th, this is crazy to me because we literally have November 1st, we have a new moon. And then on the 15th, we have a full moon. And then on the 30th, we have another new moon. So we've got like 2 new moons in November. Yeah, new moon in Sagittarius. So again, I've been talking a lot about Sagittarius. But yeah, again, it's coming back to that theme of expansion, optimism, hope, right? And so with a new moon Sag, it's really about realizing your potential, right? As well as honoring your commitments. Because again, Sagittarius is a sign of the devoted scholar. So it's about committing yourself potentially to something, something that you have a very deep passion for though. Yeah. So we've got the moon, as I said, kind of throughout November, emphasizing the Scorpio and the Taurus polarity, and then it's going to be emphasizing more the Sagittarius and the Gemini polarity from November into December, right? Yeah, and the Sag and the Gemini polarity is kind of, Sagittarius is a sign of the devoted scholar, and Gemini is kind of the sign of the hobbyist more so. Because Geminis are kind of all over the place. They like to get their hands on whatever they can, right? That piques their curiosity, right? But they don't always follow through. So it's kind of that difference between, you know, following through on something you're really passionate about versus just like kind of indulging your curiosity. And they're both they're both good in their own ways, right? It's just that I do think that society tends to like shame the sort of Gemini energy a lot of the time, right? Because we always feel like, oh, if you start reading a book, you have to finish it. If you start this, you have to finish it. But it's like, I don't know, like if you've got like 50 different unfinished art projects laying around your house, is that like inherently a bad thing? Like, I don't necessarily think so. So, yeah, there's that. But that's pretty much it for the November one. But yeah, thank you to everyone who joined the live stream, though. It's been a short one. But then I'm going to go over. Yeah.
I'm not good at it.
I do. Because I was like, oh, it's like the same. Like, I was like, oh, the notes are like the same length as they usually are. But I got through it so much quickly with like less people here. Yeah. But thank you to everyone who joined the live stream. There's quite a few people. On the live stream, someone said November is going to go so fast. November is going to go so fast. It's going to be a very energetic month, I think. Yeah, which kind of is a blessing and a curse. Because at this time of year, I just want to like bundle up in my cozy clothes and stay at home. But everyone's like, it's like everyone's got this like sparkle in their eye and they're like, oh, let's go. And it's like, no, it's November, let's not. But whatever. So thank you to everyone who joined. I'm gonna end the live stream now. Yeah, I know, my friend's having a baby, so yeah, it's crazy. She's gonna have a kid probably on the next Astro meet I have.
Oh my goodness.
I know, I'm so excited.
Does she know if it's a girl or a boy? Or?
Yeah, it's a girl.
Oh.
Yeah.
So sweet.
Yeah.
Sorry I dropped in so late. I've got
Oh, no
to put
worries.
these in the calendar with reminders because I always want to come and then I'm like, I missed it. And then of course I can catch up on that.
And then you see the live stream? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I can catch up there.
Okay. I'm gonna end the live stream. And then I'll go over like the month ahead and everything with you. Thank you everyone
and
for
I don't want to take
coming.
too much of your time. I can even just ask you about key dates maybe.
Yeah. No, it's totally fine. I just it was like super fast. I didn't realize how much time it took to like
deal with people.
Yeah, so because usually everyone's like asking like tons of questions and stuff, and yeah. Okay, let's go over everything that I talked about. Hopefully there we go.
I'm traveling to Alert Bay.
To where?
Alert Bay.
Alert Bay.
It's off of the top of Vancouver.